Okay, we're going to get right back into this next part for time's sake. Now, this is where we stopped the last time. All right, so we see Peter was in Joppa or Joppa. Joppa or Joppo equals, it means beautiful, a city of Palestine on the Mediterranean, lying on the border of the tribes of Dan and Ephraim. That's very important to keep in mind. It was subject to the Jews from the time of the Maccabees. It had a famous but dangerous port and carried on a flourishing trade. It is now called Jaffa. So again, we know that this place existed. Okay, let's keep rolling. But these are the things we got to do too. You got to get these maps so you can kind of get a better understanding. Because again, people keep talking about Paul. Peter had the keys of life and death. He used the Mashiach used Peter to open up the door to all nations, everybody, whoever wanted to listen. But again, we're gonna hit to that later. But Paul, yeah, Paul was he wrote all these letters and all that. But spend a lot of time in Peter's writings. You'll be amazed. But what happened is these strangers then took this whole thing and switched it around and put themselves in it because they felt left out. And I get it, because you got everything now, but you're not gonna have everything later. And when a lot of people see this and they see, well, wait a minute, nobody's left out. You just got to do what is written. You got to keep the commandments. Period. Anybody, and that goes for everybody. But it just so happens that one people have a covenant and one people don't. And they'll say, well, this now is spiritual. Yeah, it is spiritual. But Yah still is trying to save the people of the covenant. And that's why we here. We here to try to get whoever wants to listen. Because again, we got a mixed multitude. We ain't even tripping on none of that. But everything has to go to Israel first. I'm just sorry about that. Even when we go to Revelation, I mean, you see the ones that were sealed before anybody else. It was 12,000. I mean, out of each tribe of Israel, period. And the kingdom Israel gonna be on top. It's gonna be a difference. I'm sorry to say, but it's that's just a book. I ain't making this up. That's the Mashiach. That's the Father will. That's what it is, and that's what it's gonna be. Let's keep rolling. Now, Acts chapter 10, when he told Peter to rise and kill. We get G number 2380 Thayu, it means to sacrifice, immolate, to slay, kill of the paschal lamb slaughter. So now, why would Peter, being as this also represents cleanliness, then it has, in other words, it means the things that's clean. So why? Because that's what the priest did. Person brought the sacrifice, they had to cut it up, not the priest. They gave it to the priest. He laid it on the altar, and certain parts of that animal the priest was allowed to eat. But it was all clean, right? Leviticus 3 and 1. Let's go look at that real quick. This is why we do the corny classes. I keep saying it because somebody's like, man, you need to do I ain't changing nothing. I mean, I might do a little bit of changing, but it ain't gonna be much because this is what he's giving me to do, and I'm doing mine. Leviticus 3 and 1. And if his oblation be a sacrifice of peace offering, if he offer it to the herd, whether it be a male or a female, he shall offer it without blemish before Yahuwah. So by him telling Peter to do this, this basically kind of what it was pointing at. So you see that brother was like, wait a minute, man, I don't get this. Something is wrong. See, a peace offering is H number 8002, Shilim, a sacrifice for alliance or friendship. So if that's what all this sheet basically really deeply meant, why would this brother be trying to eat something or sacrifice something unclean? That's the same way as you off yourself on the altar. You can't be offering, you can't be praying to Yahoo when you ain't keep no commandments. You can't tell people that. When you go, but again, because they don't search the first covenant, they don't like to read that. You gotta read it, because otherwise, how could you have any understanding? Because you the sacrifice now. You the sacrifice, baby. Go to Ezekiel chapter 22 and 26. All right, let's get there. Her princes in the midst thereof are like wolves, ravening the prey, to shed blood and to destroy souls, to get dishonest gain. And her prophets have dubbed them with untempered mortar, seeing vanity and divine lies unto them, saying, Thus says Yahuwah Elohim, when Yahuwah has not spoken. Let's go this, and this is what's happening right now. This is exactly what's going on right now. But they're going to pay for it. Just make sure you don't be in there with them. But the priest, Exodus chapter 44 and 15, but the priest, the Levites, the son of Zadok, that kept the charge of my sanctuary, because you had two different type of priests. You had the priest that was tripping, they was evil, they was wicked, they had, it's like they build a wall with untempered mortar, so it's gonna fall down eventually. And this is what's happening. This stuff is these walls is falling down, and people are now, I mean, because they had everything blocked, they had you boxed in a box, but the mortar that they was using didn't have no commandments, so it was weak. So when the wall falls, now people starting to say, wait a minute, man, this something is wrong with it. Oh, I can see everything now. Why you been hiding this from me, man? But you can't blame these pastors for everything. You got to blame yourself. Because if you too lazy to take the time to actually get in this thing and start looking around and then asking questions, then how you gonna ever get any type of understanding? You ain't keeping the commandments, so you ain't got the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh. So you just stay in a baby state for 70 years and then you die. And then now you got to deal with something that you thought you weren't going to have to deal with because you didn't search the scriptures and you thought you was living righteous. And it's too late then. 44 and 15. But the priests, the Levites, the sons of Zadok, that kept the charge of my sanctuary when the children of Israel went astray from me, they shall come near to me to minister unto me. And they shall stand before me to offer unto me the fat and the blood, saith Yahuwah Elohim. Now let's jump down here to 23. And they shall teach my people the difference between the holy and profane, and cause them to discern between the unclean and the clean. And in controversy, they stand in judgment. They shall stand in judgment, and they shall judge it according to my judgments, and they shall keep my laws and my statutes and all mine assemblies, and they shall hallow my Shabbats. Now, here it is right here. So in the past, we seen what was happening, and then this is going to be the future in the kingdom. But they still keep the commandments in the kingdom. So how is they done away with? They're not. And I know it's another catch, man. All y'all do is talk about the commandments. What else is it to talk about? What else is it to search out? Because that's the keys to you opening the door to the Father's house for the Mashiach to let you in. That's the key. Is these commandments, man. And brother and sister, that's what you gotta have. And in the future, they're gonna be doing the same thing. Now, can Peter eat anything he wants? Let's go to Acts chapter 10. We're gonna read verse 9 through 13 again. It's the only way we're gonna get this understanding. Man, it's time to get with it. Time to get with it. Come out of all that craziness and search this thing out. On the morrow, as they went on their journey, they drew nigh to the city. Peter went up upon the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. And he became very hungry and wouldn't have eaten. But while they made ready, he fell into a trance. Very, very important. And saw heaven open and a certain vessel descending unto him, as it had been a great sheet knit at the four corners and let down to the earth. So we understand that now. Wherein were all manners of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And that's something else I want to point out. Here, this sheet come down with tassels or with fringes on it. That man already know what that means because he got them on his garb. Why would he? So now that's why he's confused. Because I got this thing to remind me of the commandments, but this voice is telling me to eat these things that's unclean. It don't make no sense. But we got to get understanding. Praise Yah. And there came a voice to him, rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, not so, sovereign, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the second time, what Elohim have cleansed, that call not thou common. So we see from verse 14 to 17, right? And we get into these dreams, it's a parable or a riddle. Seek the Father for the answer. Because this brother is like saying, man, what's going on? Verse 17, it says perplexed, right? Which is Greek word number 1280. All right, so a vision. It's a sight divinely granted in an ecstasy or in a sleep of vision from root 3705, Numbers 12:6-8. Let's go there. Man was having like, man, what's going on? See how he grabbing his head? He perplexed. What could this mean? You letting this stuff down with fringes on four corners, but then you telling me to eat it. Nah, this must be House of Town or something going on crazy, because I know my Elohim, he told me not to do this. And I know this from the time I was a child. Okay, Numbers 12:6-8. Uh-oh. Yeah, you gotta understand this stuff and look at it for what it is. Get out of our feelings and seek this thing. 12:6-8. And he said, hear now my words, if there be a prophet among you. I, Yahuwah, will make myself known unto him in a vision and will speak to him in a dream. Right? My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. Within him will I speak mouth to mouth, and even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of Yahuwah shall he behold. Wherefore then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? So that's a whole nother. I can break this whole thing down into a whole nother thing. But he speak to him mouth to mouth, like face to face. But again, we know that Moses he was behind the veil, right? But he saw a similitude of him. Numbers 12:6-8. So we see that this word kedar, dark speeches, is a riddle, a difficult question. So why would it be a difficult? That's in other words here. So here Peter is, he questioning himself because this is difficult. It's some type of parable, an enigmatic, or like the so those that watch Batman, you know, that's the Riddler's name. He's a Riddler. He's the enigma, a saying or question, perplexing saying or question. So he confused. What is this? What kind of dark speech is this? What kind of parable or riddle is this? Because it shouldn't be this hard. If it was okay for him just to eat it, he wouldn't be going through all this. But this man going through some changes, because something can't be right with this. This is what we got to understand. Instead of just reading over this thing and then clapping and praying and jumping around, and come on, man, it's time to get down with this thing. Verse 10, trance is G number 1611, a throwing of the mind out of its normal state, alienation of the mind, whether such as makes a lunatic or that of a man who by some sudden emotion is transported as it were out of himself. So that in this rapt condition, although he is awake, his mind is drawn off from all surrounding objects and wholly fixed on the things divine, that he sees nothing but the forms and images lying within, and thinks that he perceives with his body, eyes and ears, realities or reality shown by him by Elohim. Acts 10:15, and the voice spake unto him again the second time, what Elohim have cleansed, that call not thou common. Peter was a Hebrew. He knew the dietary instruction. If it was okay for him to kill and eat, he would have done so without hesitation. The book said the brother was hungry, but he doubted and he was perplexed. See, we got to see this and take our time and look at this for what it is, not from what we being told. So anything that's common is G number 2840, called common, defiled, pollute, unclean, ordinary. By the Jews, unhallowed, profane, Levitically unclean. We just showed you this. So why would this brother, that's why he doubting himself, man, I ain't never ate nothing Levitically unclean. Because he knew the dietary instruction. I ain't never ate nothing that's polluted. These are abominations. Cleanse is Strong's number 2511, to free from defilement of sin and from fault. Gentiles were considered as dogs or swine because most Gentiles ate of all manner of unclean beasts. Right? Because then Mashiach, I mean, then in Revelation, they told you who was going to be outside the city. One of them was dogs, as did Israel that was scattered because they loved to learn the ways of the heathen. So you have become a Gentile then, and you, like right now, you think you a Gentile, and you act like a Gentile, and you eat the things that the Gentiles, and you do all the things that the Gentiles do. And not even understanding that most of this Christian stuff that you getting into today is the evangelicals. Go, you need to find out about them because I promise you, you live in the same way, and they have these big giant colleges and all this, and they don't even want you in them. They don't even want you there. The people that started all this stuff, I mean, they was against equal rights and all this back in the day. But this is where a lot of your teaching is coming from, and you don't even know it because you're too lazy to do some research. Can't be lazy in this game. The conception of personal cleanliness as both a prerequisite of holiness and an aid to physical fitness is central to Hebrew tradition. Cleansing with water for physical as well as spiritual purity was commanded in the Old Testament. You don't even know why you want to be sharp all the time, and why you want to smell good all the time, because it's in your blood. And when somebody ain't, like, man, that cat musty. They used to say that back in my day. I don't know what they say now because I know when I was in Atlanta, boys, them young boys get on the train, they was on fire. I mean, dreads, they got dreads, they dirty, they're dusty looking. Moses bathed Aaron and his sons before their ordination as priests, Leviticus 8 and 6. Clothing contaminated by mold or mildew had to be washed. These supposed to be clean. That's what I'm saying. We don't even know why we like to be sharp all the time because it's already in us. A disease, unclean person had to be quarantined outside the camp until the infection ceased. Leviticus 13:45 through 46. When the disease was gone, the person had to wash his clothes, shave off all his hair, and bathe with water. Like I say, this is already in you, Israel. While you out here every Friday going to buy them new Jordans and them new outfits, and you like to be sharp. Yeah, you don't even know why you like to be sharp. Jewish cleansing ritual. Mikveh, right? Purification was required of all Jews before they could enter into the temple or participate in major festivals like the feast days. Hundreds of thousands of pilgrims converged on Jerusalem for Passover and other major feasts, because three of them. I mean, you got to go there, but now you got cats. Well, see, if you can't get to do that's why you don't have to keep the feast. Don't believe that. 100 mikvahs attesting to the need for water purification before entering into the temple rites. It's some Jewish stuff, but still, it still can be proven. Have been found by Hebrew University's Benjamin Mazasi around the wall adjacent to Herod's temple. McVeighs resembling large bathtubs or small garden ponds have been found in Jericho and elsewhere in Israel. What Elohim has cleansed, let that call not thou common. It's talking about men. And we're going to show you that because when Paul came with some guests, yeah, guess what? He had to prove that he kept the command. Like, man, what you doing with these people, man? It wasn't that they was Gentiles or white people. They was Hebrews. But they had the ways of the people that was around them that they never was supposed to do. So this brother had to go through all these rituals, shave his, all this stuff to prove that he kept the commandment. But they talking about Paul said that, when they go into Paul's writings, you just gotta, that's why, again, you gotta go to the first part of the book to understand Paul. Otherwise, they're gonna get you, they're gonna trick you. The court of the Gentiles were the outermost court and the only area of the temple where non-Jews, Judah were allowed. See, because if you want to see, a Jew really is somebody that's from the house of Judah, not the whole nation. That's what they got you tricked at. See, that's what they got you tricked at. And it, as its name implies, the court of the Gentiles was accessible to Gentiles, foreigners, and those who were considered impure. So you got to understand from this point right here, when the first in Solomon's temple, they didn't have this. In the tabernacle in the wilderness, there was none of this set up. This was some Pharisee stuff. This was some of their crap. Their worshippers could mail about, exchange money, and even buy animals for sacrifice. Oh yeah, you can make money for the temple, but you can't come in. It was from the court of the Gentiles that Yahusha on two occasions, John 2:11 through 12, Matthew 21, 17 through 23, drove out the money changers because they was in there pimping the people, making money, declaring, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you make it a den of robbers." And see, this is, again, this house was supposed to represent the Father's house. This is why he was so upset. And we've been over some of these classes with that, talking about the Father's house, because that's what you're trying to get into. The court and the Mashiach is the door. The court of the women, the only area of the temple complex in which women could worship, contained the poor boxes. One of these boxes was where the poor widow offered her 2 mites. Ceremonially clean Jews, and I don't like to say that. I don't know why, but I got to leave it like it is. I ain't trying to switch nothing up. Men could enter the court of Israel, and the court of priests, where the altar stood, was accessible only to Levitical priests. Non-Jews were allowed to enter the court of the Gentiles, but they were forbidden to go any further than the outer court. The inner temple courtyards were enclosed by balustrade, and at the entrance to its notices were posted in both Greek and Latin, warning foreigners and uncircumcised persons that crossing into one of the other courtyards was punishable by death. One of those ancient notices is now on display in the museum in Istanbul. On Paul's last visit to Jerusalem, some Jews stirred up a crowd, grabbed Paul in the temple, alleging that he had taken Trophimus, a Gentile, into one of the forbidden courtyards. And I see that people say, "See, he took," but what kind of Gentile was it? Paul was innocent of the charges, but the mob beat him with the intent to kill him. It was a quick action of a Roman garrison commander that preserved Paul's life on the occasion. This only existed under the Pharisees' rule under Herod. And this is just a stone where all this stuff was supposed to be written on. If you come past this stone here, because they had 2 of them set up. This is like, or they had, sometime you would, some place, some encyclopedias that say that they had a wall there. It's the wall of perdition that Paul was talking about. Not the wall so that you have Jewish people and Gentiles or other nations, or basically, really, when you go to Genesis chapter 10, it show you who the Gentiles was. But then it been all this switch when it came, because now the Mashiach said, "I'm only after the lost sheep of house of Israel," who was considered Gentiles in the New Testament that was scattered all over the place. See, this just wasn't some white people that was hacked, because white people Greeks didn't even come around them like that. They had one time when the Greeks was trying to ask some questions of the Messiah, and he didn't even answer them. Because he told you, "I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Period. That's point blank. It's not racist. It's just facts. Facts. Let's keep rolling. Now, Peter, full of Ruach. New International Version, John 20 and 22. And with that, he breathed on them and said, "Receive the Ruach HaKodesh." Then in Acts 2 and 4, and they were all filled with the set apart spirit and began to speak with other tongues, and the spirit gave them utterance, right? So let's go to John chapter 15. So this man already was full of the Ruach. But then which leads and guides you into Yah's word and all truth. And then he gonna sit up here and eat some stuff that's unclean, man. It's just ridiculous. But that's okay. We trying to help you. John 15, 11 through 16. Believe me that I am in the Father, and the Father in me, or else believe me for the very work's sake. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. And whatsoever you shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. But let's see, Mashiach. So that means I can just pray and he's going to give it to me? Well, wait a minute. Whoa. Now, it's a prerequisite here. He said, if you shall ask anything in my name, I would do it. But if you love me, keep my commandments. So if you ain't keeping his commandments, maybe that's Hasatan giving you all this material stuff you keep begging for. You ain't asking for no understanding, right? And I will pray the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever, even the Spirit of truth. So if you're not keeping no commandments, you ain't got no Spirit of truth. I don't care what they tell you. You could be sanctified, holy, all that, filled with the Holy Ghost. You ain't filled with nothing. You ain't filled with nothing, not according to this book. Because again, we got to go by facts. So the Ruach made him doubt. See, because he had spirit in him. He already knew it from a fleshly standpoint. From the time he was a kid, he was raised up this way. And this is part of the problem we have now because you're not teaching these kids. We haven't been teaching our kids about these things. So now they out here wide open, shooting and killing each other because they don't know nothing about no stuff you shouldn't kill. They don't care about that. They don't know nothing about you shouldn't be prostituting your sisters. They don't know nothing about that. They don't know about practicing sorcery, that selling dope make them a sorcerer, and taking the drugs does too, because you partaking in that craziness, that witchcraft. They don't know these things. But again, we not taught these things, so we don't know them either. Right? Your women out here all half naked and everything. You know, if she got commandments, that I mean, all these things are set up so that the society that Yahuwah had planned would run like an engine, clean, morally, clean physically, clean mentally. This is what he wants. But by us being too weak to stand up and tell the truth, now look what's going on around you, and all you can do is say, "Well, they steady killing downtown. They steady shooting. Last night they was shooting everywhere. Man, these young boys, they out of control. Yeah, they out of control because of what? Sin. It is what it is." John 14 and 26. But the Comforter, which is the Ruach Hakodesh, whom the Father will send in my name, she shall teach you. She? Wait a minute, where are you getting that from? Yeah. Check the Old Testament. Check some of these other books. And I always tell you that the Ruach is a feminine spirit. Even when you look it up, it's feminine. She shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance whatsoever I have said to you. So if Peter, this was already back in Peter. He's like, wait a minute, man, I ain't supposed to be, I can't do this. Because this stuff then came back to my memory about the dietary law. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes to fear Yahuwah our Elohim for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness. This is how we get our righteousness. If we observe to do all these commandments before Yahuwah, our Elohim, as he have commanded us. So that's your righteousness right there. It ain't what you think or what you want to do or what somebody's telling you. You got to seek this book out to find out what your righteousness is. And we know what it is now because we done read what the Mashiach said to do. And how you going to get the gift that's going to lead you and guide you, the spirit of truth into all things. Oh, man. Got to slow down and look and listen and be humble enough to listen. This has to do with people not eating unclean foods. Can you look at this man and tell which one of them is not Israel? A lot of people think they can. But how can you do that when Ephraim was scattered all over the place? Israel is everywhere. We finding out now that that the original indigenous people in this country was Hebrews because they had the same customs. I was looking at and I like Dan Calloway. He refuses to acknowledge that he is Israel, but it's okay. I don't care because with him seeking this thing out, he gonna come across it. You got a few people out here putting out some real good videos and information on that type of stuff. But see, the fact is, we don't know these things. So then we try to take on our own righteousness and say, well, see, can't none of these be Israel. Only this brother right here. Oh, yeah, we know he is. But the rest of them, how could that be? Man, come on, man. Y'all know, he know who belong to him. Just because you don't, he does. You can always spot the spiritual babies by the things they say. Only black people can be Israel. Only those who are Israel in their minds can be saved. But Acts 10 and 35 says, but in every nation, he that feareth him, fear of who? Yahuwah, and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. This is what he wants. See? So you got to be spiritual Israel, but again, he's after those Hebrews that is lost, and whoever else would even humble themselves, because the most average person, right, man, look at them people. Here they go with that, talking about they Jews. Okay. But see, that's that hatred inside some of them that won't let them just sit there and listen. You know what? Let me go look at this. Maybe they are. It is what it is, people. Now, clean fish according to the instruction. These you shall eat out of all that are in the waters, all that have fins and scales you shall eat. And whatsoever have not fins and scales you may not eat. It's unclean to you. So it's just like it is. If you want to do his will, you want to follow his way, he just got done telling you back here. But in every nation, he that feareth him and worketh righteousness. So by eating these calamaris, that's on. I mean, you ain't working righteousness. Eating clams and mussels and all that, you ain't practicing righteousness. Big old shrimp, you know you love them, Jacob. Ooh, them catfish. Oh man, don't go down to Nolens, because you ain't gonna do nothing but eat crawfish and bed mud bugs and all that. Ooh, look at them lobsters. You can't wait to go get hold of them. But the fish here, this fish got finished scales. The rest of this stuff we not supposed to be touching it. And as a chef years ago, I loved it, but then there's times I knew I was gonna go home unclean because this is what they wanted to eat. This is what they, and a lot of this stuff will kill you, especially when you start talking about these different muscles and stuff. Because if you don't, we had to check each bag. If one of them was just a little bit open, we had to throw it away. Because if we put that in some type of linguine sauce, man, let me tell you something. That stuff will kill you. I've seen people eat some of this stuff that was it was no good. Somebody didn't check you didn't have a person that was up on their job and they didn't go through their they didn't go through their station before the shift like they supposed to. This girl ate some of these slimy shrimp, and I'm talking about she got sick within like 3 minutes. She was throwing it up violently. They had to call an ambulance for her. See, but all these things we're not supposed to be having. I know they taste good, especially when they hit it with that butter, right? You're not supposed to be eating this stuff. Clean birds and fowls according to the instructions, Acts 10 and 12, right? Deuteronomy 14 and 11. It's going to tell you what kind of birds you can eat and what kind of birds you can't eat. And some people, well, man, chicken is a chicken to eat rats with. Listen, man, there ain't nowhere in this book saying that I can't have no chicken. But I know at one time that was another thing. I can't eat no chicken because of this. Because, man, you don't need to be eating no chicken. Man, get out of here. I'm frying some chicken right now as I'm talking to you on the phone. And then 6 months later, they back eating chicken. I'm like, I thought you wouldn't eat no chicken, man. Nah, yeah. Okay, I got you. Leviticus 7:41 through 42. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments and shall not commit any of these abominations. So when you eat these things, they're an abomination. You can't have this stuff. An abomination is something that's filthy, vile, nasty. I mean, I could say some things that this like would be like eating, but we ain't gonna go there. But all around the world, people eat these, especially you, Jacob. Especially way back in the day. I know when I was a little boy, and even further back than that. Being as we under these curses and we just still refuse to not do right. We out here starving. And when you catch you a possum, they have some possum stew. You catch your raccoon, you put some potatoes around, and that joker was going in the oven. I'm just telling you what it is. It just is what it is. And in some places around the world, all these things are eaten. That's what the nations do. But you're not supposed to learn the ways of the nation. And then even when you come up under this thing, you got understanding. No matter what nation you from, you can't eat this stuff. You ain't under grace that you can eat this stuff. You can't do it. Now, Peter sees unclean animals. And this some of the stuff we showed you all this, we read to you all the stuff that was on the sheet. Look at all these creeping things. You gonna eat that? Because you under grace, you should be able to eat it. They eat it, like, man, go in the Orient. They eat all these jokers. I'm talking about whether they fry them, put them in soup, however. Animals defined by the instructions that are not permitted. It's a reminder. But you see this guy here, cover me, boys. I'm going in. I'm under grace, right? They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gods behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination, and the mouse shall be consumed together, says Yahweh Elohim. We showed you that the Romans used to eat mice. That was like a delicacy almost to them. But now they're good old slabs of pork ribs, right? Yeah, the hog head cheese. Yeah, and you got that big old thick cut bacon. I used to love that right there, boy, with that alga syrup with some biscuits. Oh man. Pop, look at that big old, that's a beautiful pork chop right there. Huh? If you do that, you're gonna be consumed. You eat these things, you will be consumed. Ain't no grace for you. Please believe it. Other nations eat these. Deuteronomy 20:18. They teach you not to do after all their abomination, which they have done unto their Elohim. So should you sin against Yahweh your Elohim. So this is what they do. They Elohim, whoever that is, tell them it's okay to eat that. And I think about what I just said to you. This is why we have to make sure we under the right Elohim. Because if you under Elohim that's saying that you under grace, you might need to check his name. You might need to do some research, and you might need to get away from that Elohim. Because in America, you wouldn't eat this. You wouldn't. But I know some jokers down south that eat eels. Please believe me. Now, some of these other ones you might have to be in another country to eat. But I know jokers that eat eels. I mean, and everything we just got done showing you. Now, Cornelius the centurion, hardened by battle, no fear. He had to be violent if right. That's what he's supposed to be. If he was a centurion, that was like the sergeant major of the Roman army. He was brutal. He was trained, highly trained. He trained men. He was a trained killer, a strong leader, instructor, loyal to Rome 100%. His men feared and respected him in all things. Now he was from the Italian band. So when we look at Greek word 4686 band, the 10th part of a legion of Italian soldiers. So does that mean that he was an Italian? No, because I was in the military. We had a lot of cats that was in the military. We guess what? We was from the American band, if you want to call it that. But we wasn't Greek, so we wasn't German, or we wasn't. You see what I'm saying? You got to understand that. So Acts 10:1. Let's go there. Look at this cat. I had to do this too because I battled with this one right here for a long time. But no, this brother, he was not a Gentile like you think. Cornelius 10:1. There was a certain man in Caesarea called Cornelius, a centurion of the band called the Italian band. So he was just in a legion of Italian soldiers. That's all that is. It's nothing, like people try to make it. 10:22. But again, we've been lied to so much. And then that's the thing. We believe the people that have us captive, the one that's killing us, the one that's stopping you from getting that good job, the one that when you can't get no job, that won't even give you. Wow. These people got shot up in Buffalo. They got to go through all these changes to get some type of, then he'll say, okay, here go a couple of dollars for you. You be all right. That ain't going to stop the people's pain. And instead of them killing that boy, what did they do? They took him into custody. You got to understand what's going on. And they said, Cornelius the centurion, a just man, and one that feareth Elohim, and of good report among all the nation of the Jews, was warned from Elohim by a set apart messenger to send for thee into the house and to hear the words of thee. Found verse 30. And Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour. This brother even fast. And at the 9th hour I prayed in my house, and behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing, right? So let's go to Acts 18:2. This man got all the right attributes. 18:2. But all of us can have these same attributes. And found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately came from Italy, with his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all Jews to depart from Rome, and came in unto them. And because he was of the same craft, he abode with them and wrought for by their occupation that they were tent makers. And he reasoned in the synagogue. So, okay, we got that. Let's go back to Luke chapter 24. Got this man wasn't even playing with it. This man was serious about it. But he's a centurion. And then he showed us other areas where another centurion came to him and said, we know that if you say so, my son can be healed. People get it out. We just doing it like this so you can get a better understanding. With me, it's not that big of a deal. But I do this because I'm tired of people lying, and I get tired of people, I don't care how you feel about me. It don't matter to me. As long as I'm good with the Most High, I could care less. And he said unto them, these are the words which I spoken to you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which were written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms concerning me. See, he came and did his part. He ain't take nothing away for you. He didn't add nothing for you. I mean, he put you back up under the new covenant if you keep his commandments. That's what it is. This brother did everything he was supposed to do. Then open he their understanding that they might understand the scripture. And he said unto them, thus it is written, and thus it behooved Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead the third day. See, but a lot of us, we've been taught, you ain't gonna suffer, you're gonna get raptured off. Okay. I tell you what, you better go look at that class I got up there. We've been working on in class time, the day of Yahuwah, and that repentance and remission of sins should be preached in his name among all nations, beginning in Jerusalem. See, so Israel first, and then it goes out to all the other nations. See? And behold, I send the promises of my Father upon you, but tarry in the city of Jerusalem until you be endued with power from on high. It's just like, okay, he blew his breath on them, boom, oh, I could feel that. All right, now go ahead and go to Jerusalem. Boom, now I'm going to give you the whole thing. Pow! Here it comes. See, they got from power from on, and in other words, they got hit with power from on high. Let's go to John chapter 20. Stuff is like, and that's the thing. If you can't understand this stuff, you got to find somebody that can show you. You got to sit there, close your mouth, open up your eyes, and open up your ears, and be humble and learn something. Then go home and do your own investigation. And when he, John 20 and 22, and when he had said this, he breathed on him and said unto them, receive you the Ruach HaKodesh. So we got to understand these things. So this man had some spirit about him. Acts 10 and 28. Okay, so let's look at that. Acts 10 and go back to Acts chapter 10 because we're going to have to do this all day. And he said to them, you know how that is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come into one of another nation. But Elohim has showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Now, where did they get this from? Why don't they ever read this part to you? This is the end of all this stuff he done went through. Now, this part right here, when he said, I ain't never ate anything common or unclean, then the spirit said with the Mashiach or with the Elohim put together, can't no man call, what I have cleansed. So this is what he's talking about. He's talking about people. It's not even talking about nothing about no food. But they never like to read down to the whole thing. And then you never read down to the whole thing because you just stop right there. So tribe in the New Testament, all person descending from one of the 12 sons of Jacob, patriarch of Jacob, a nation of people. See? Ethnos, Acts 11 and 1. These are Hellenized people. And the apostles and brethren that were in Judea heard that the Gentile had also received the word of Elohim. See, so, but then when we look that word Gentile up, it's not going to tell us the way it tells us in Genesis chapter 10. It's going to tell us it's an ethnic thing or they're Hellenized, which means their mind have been conquered. Because you were an American. Your mind is conquered right now, too. See? You Hellenized and don't even know it. Acts chapter 2. Them jokers get on TV, put somebody on TV, got tattoos all over. When black people never even had no tattoos. Now you got tattoos everywhere. Everything that they put in your mind by some entertainment value or some stupid thing like that, you can't wait to go out and do it. Acts 2, 8 through 10. And how here we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born, Parthians, Medes, Elamites, and dwellers of Mesopotamia, and in Judea and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, Egypt, and in the parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes. See? Cretes and Arabians. So all these people right here. Here it is in Acts. You got devout men out of every nation. That's what he told you up in verse 5. So these are devout Hebrews out of all over the place. And then he come down here and then he let you know proselytes. So a proselyte is a Gentile, the same as a Gentile in Genesis chapter 10. But ethnos, Hellenized, all these things, that has nothing to do with nobody. These are lost sheep of the house of Israel. And I believe that this brother was too. Now, Cornelius feared Yahuwah. Number one, he feared Yahuwah and seeks his ways. Number two, kept the commandments. Number three, they were clean before Yahuwah. Because that other thing about eating with people of other nations, that ain't no scripture. That's some pharisaical shit. That's some Pharisees type of stuff. That's where that comes from. Because we can go all the way back, and Yahuwah said one law for Hebrews, one law for the stranger. So yes, you can eat with them and teach them and offer them the peace offering. What peace offering? Teach them about Yahusha. See? This is what we got to understand, man. We gotta be to get to this. We gotta get to this level. But see, when we don't know anything and we don't use these other tools that we have, this is where the problem comes from. Let's go to Colossians chapter 1 and read verse 20 through 23. But we try to get an understanding up here. That's what we try to do. And having made peace through the blood of his cross, by him to reconcile all things unto himself. By him I say, whether they be things in earth or things in heaven, right? And you that were sometime alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now hath he reconciled. It's talking about Israel. This ain't, you know what I mean? And the stranger could come if he want to too, but he after the lost sheep. He already told you that. And the body of his flesh through death to present you holy and unblameable and unreprovable in his sight. If you continue in the faith, grounded and settled, and be not moved away from the hope of the gospel which you have heard, and which was preached to every creature which is under heaven, or the Shamaim. Wherefore I, Paul, am made a minister. And so every creature gonna hear this gospel. The creature is you. We are the creature. You are the created. Men, period. I'm not saying not women. I'm just saying because man is a species. He's male and female. So you got to understand that. So it's for his creation, which is all people, period. Now, what this means is that Yahuwah's Ruach had called Cornelius to reverence Yahuwah, because no man can come to reverence Yahuwah unless Yahuwah's Ruach HaKodesh draws him. John 6 and 44, no man can come to me unless the Father who has sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. So about the ninth hour of the day, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he clearly saw in a vision a malak of Yahuwah coming toward him and saying to him, Cornelius. And when he looked upon him, he was afraid and said, what is it, ruler? And he said to him, your prayers and your alms have come up as a memorial before Yahuwah. Verse 4 shows this man's desire to be shown the way to salvation was met. Yahuwah sent the Malak to instruct Cornelius as to whom he should seek to be taught these things. Okay? And I can get it because I understand it because you got a lot of these paid agents out here. They got all these crazy costumes on with the star of Rim all over their clothes, and they cussing at folks and acting a fool. That's set up on purpose for that. Because now I don't care if you be like, man, Israel, I don't hear nothing about that because the Lord said and all this type of stuff. So now you're going to defend. But it's everybody that's out here trying to do this thing and trying to show the people we not out here acting crazy. We ain't cussing nobody out. We ain't. I mean, that ain't even no. That's people like that can't have no spirit. Now, this is what we got to understand. Now this is all I can find with this, but this kind of make it simple. But they're gonna have the Jewish day, but we know this ish part is fake. So 6 a.m. sunrise, end of the fourth watch. I got something out of the class I did on this, but these are the hours of prayer. See, the sixth hour. This is when Peter saw the vision. Okay? Then the ninth hour, 3 o'clock. Here's Cornelius. He praying. You see, these are the hours of prayer and the different watches in the night. The Hebrew day was from sunset to sunset in 8 equal parts. See, right? And that's why, Yahusha in John 11:9, are there not 12 hours in a day? But see, you've been told it's 24 hours in a day. That's why everything you do is throwed off. I'm telling you, man, this thing is so beautiful. It's unbelievable. In the Old Testament era, the hours of prayer were also known as the hours of oblation or sacrifice. It is recorded that the prophet Daniel prayed 3 times a day. Oh, he did? Yeah, he sure did. Going back to the same thing, right? While I was speaking, praying, confessing my sin, it's Daniel. And that of all my people Israel. So that means, see, look at here. There you go. Daniel was greatly beloved. We know that. We read that in the scripture. So if he was great, but he confessing his sin too. So we all gonna make mistakes. We all gonna do some stupid things. We all gonna get caught with our pants down. Just got to fight it back off and just try to come back. And presented my petition before Yahuwah my Elohim concerning his holy mountain. While I was still praying, Gabriel, the man I had seen in the earlier vision, came to me in a swift flight about the time of the evening oblation. See, they all knew this. Yahushua, Yahusha, our supreme sacrifice, was crucified in the third hour of the day, his witness of darkness at noonday. See, that's what it is. Like, wait a minute, how could this be? That's why it was so mind blowing. Occurred in the sixth hour. Finally, at the time of the evening oblation, being the ninth hour, Yahusha gave up the ghost and died for the sins of the world. Right? Which really should just be saying something else, but New International, it was 9 in the morning when they crucified him the third hour. Mark 15 and 33, New International Version. At noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon, which is the sixth hour. So you might want to look into this. But like I said, we got some up here we're gonna put on prayer. It's gonna help you. And if you can pray these times of the day, it's gonna really be good for you. Please believe me. And it was about the sixth hour, and there was a darkness over the whole earth until the ninth hour. And the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was rent in the midst, getting ready to the animal sacrifice. And when Yahusha had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And having said thus, he gave up the ghost. So it's a whole lot of things he did here. But Levitical priesthood, you finna get changed, buddy. That's you about to get changed. You got a new high priest now. It's a new sheriff in town. All that wickedness y'all been doing is gonna come to the end. When the day of Pentecost came, they were all together in one place. These people are not drunk as you suppose. It's only 9 in the morning. So what does that mean? The third hour. They was up there praying. They wasn't seeking no ruach. Even though he did tell them to go to Jerusalem and that he gonna endow them with power, but this is a prayer time of prayer. So we see they both were devout praying during the oblations of the day. I'm hoping y'all understand that. Now we're gonna stop right here. We're gonna come back. We're gonna go ahead and get into this thing about the message. Let me go ahead and get out of this board right here. All right, so Behold, we thank you for this time that you've given us, and we just ask that you touch somebody's mind so they can understand what we're saying. We thank you for all things. In Yahushua's name we pray. Hallelujah. Okay, we'll see you back here.